Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening for the second webinar series of the semester. We're pleased to have Angela Beltran as our guest speaker joining us from Bogota, Colombia to discuss her experience in the peacekeeping field. If you have any questions during the webinar, please tweet them to our account at USF Disaster Management and we will answer them at the end. I will now let Angela begin.
Hi, everybody. My name is Angela Beltran. I will be talking about Colombia, the peace process, and a sustainable peace. I currently work for a foundation that is called Fundacion Ideas para la Paz, which translates into Foundation for Ideas for Peace. So what I'll be doing today, I'll be talking about my background first, and then I'll go on to talk about the organization that I work for, the projects that I'm involved in, and a little bit about the context on what's going on in the peace process and actually the latest developments, which have changed in the past 28 hours. So I'll start with my background. I studied international relations at Florida International University in Miami. I am Colombian, but I moved when I was 13 years old. So I went to school in the States and I went to FIU. I also did my job in the States. I studied international relations and geography. So my first job was as an assistant planner in the city of Miramar, which is a small city located between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. I then moved on to Chicago. I moved there. I lived there for 2 years. I worked for a communications firm, mostly on campaigns related to social issues. I worked on a statewide health campaign for Illinois called Say It Out Loud, and I worked with other nonprofits, with Feeding America and the White House Historical Association as a project assistant. This is back in 2008. In 2009, I decided that I wanted to come back to Colombia. I moved back. I had a family and I had friends, and I had always felt a connection with Colombia, and I was always interested in what was going on politically. So I moved to study a program on conflict resolution, one of the top universities in Colombia, which is Pontificia Universidad Javeriana. It's located in Bogota. I did that for a year. It was a specialization. It's close to a master's degree, but it doesn't take at least 2 years. It takes 1 year. And what the program did, it focused on the conflict, the internal conflict, the national conflict. Even though we studied different processes, different peace talks, and everything that was related to conflict resolution, the focus was on what was going on internally in Colombia, which turns out I studied it at a very, because 2 years later, I am working I'm involved in a project for the actual peace process that is going on right now. So that's a little bit of my background and what I've done so far. I'm going to tell you about the organization that I work for. Like I said before, this is the Fundación Ideas para la Paz, which translates into Foundation for Ideas for Peace. This organization was established, well, it's really a think tank and is one of the most renowned think tanks in the country. It was established in 1999 by the private sector, and a couple of entrepreneurs and business owners got together and decided they wanted to create a space where people will be able to, academics and people in the field of conflict resolution, could come together and work ideas of society and how the academic world, and everybody outside of government could help resolve the conflict that has been going on for so long. So they created this foundation. Like I said, it's a space of knowledge, research, and it takes on different projects with, it's a nonprofit, so obviously we work resources from um, the foundation is divided in 4 areas. The one that the dynamics of the conflict and peace talks. And I'm sorry, I have to translate it because everything's in Spanish. And if you're interested, there's a website. It's just that it hasn't been officially translated. So the first area is dynamics of the conflict and peace talks, which is the area that I worked in. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what they do. It's pretty much all the what's going on right now with the peace talks and how the armed conflict relates to to the dynamics of the people of different sectors of the. So, for example, one of the projects that some colleagues are working on right now, it's an academic research sponsored by the BID, and what they're trying to do is trying to find the connection between the armed conflict and the oil industry in Colombia. So how do they interact, and how does that reflect on what's going on in the country? The next area that the foundation has is peace building and post-conflict, which actually is one of the most thriving areas right now. Colombia right now, it's in a situation where it has placed itself in a position where the conflict is coming to an end, hopefully, and it's on to a post-conflict time or era, you could call it. It's going to take a long time, and it takes a lot of changes. It takes structural changes, institutional changes, changes among the civil society. So this area of the foundation has taken on different projects, and it's growing very fast. They work with everything that's related to peace building, all the initiatives of small organizations and of big enterprises. And they work with them, and they study and see how that's gonna play out in the future. So that is beginning to be more of a player right now in the Colombian society. The third area of the foundation is the business sector, conflict, and peace building. Actually, what they focus on is pretty much the relationship between businesses and the conflict, closely related with human rights and equal opportunity, and how the conflict has affected how businesses thrive in this environment. Some of the things that they're doing right now are they are working with big businesses, helping them develop programs for their employees to learn and to take in what human rights are, and how you accomplish this in the workplace, and how these policies in the workplace, they relate to what's going on outside, which is the conflict and everything that all Colombians have to go through. So that's one of the many things that they're doing right now. I do have to say that many of these things come off as products of academic research, because that's what we do. We do mostly academic research. We do this for different actors. That research could turn out to be public policy later on, but that's what we do mostly. And the fourth area is studies of security and defense, which is very interesting. And what they do is they work very closely with state actors on how to better understand the dynamics of um, the arms, um, how would I say that, the armed conflict actors. And what they do is that they do not only work in rural areas, but they work also on the urban areas. And they have a big program that the state police has taken in, and it's based on a lot of the research that the foundation did. And it's a program on how to decrease the criminality in big urban um, cities. So they're mostly related to security issues. So those are the four areas. Like I said before, I work in the first one. The first one is dynamics of the conflict and peace talk. I'm going to tell a little bit about what is it that I do and what is the project that I work on. As some of you might know, there is a peace process going on right now. It's been going on for 2 years now. I think this past week, or the peace process turned 2 years old, and it's between the guerrillas and the state and the Colombian government, we could call it. What I do, my project, is called these proposals for the civil society submit to the government, to the negotiators. So the Colombians have the opportunity to participate in this peace process, to contribute their ideas, contribute their opinion to everything that's going on in Cuba, which is where this process is taking place. There's many different methods they could do that. There's different mechanisms. There is a webpage that is available to anybody that has an internet connection, and you can go in this one webpage and just go ahead. You can submit, or you can write whatever you're thinking or whatever you want to say about the peace process, and what you can propose new ideas. Besides the webpage, other forums that have taken place throughout these 2 years, and they are based on the points of the agenda that are being negotiated. So later on, I'll tell you a little bit about how the peace process far they have gone and what's going on. But for now, I'll tell you that there's been 9 events all across Colombia, and there's actually been an open event where it took place in different cities, and Colombians that live in other countries and that were able to participate were also there to give what they thought was their opinion, and what they thought about what was going on. And all this information is gathered into this it's this whole that government takes on. Like, we receive it, then they take it, they give it to us as a foundation, or my team, and we receive it. And what we do with that information is that we read it, and we have a database where we put the information in. We categorize it, different variables, depending on what the person is proposing. We will put them under a category. And after that, after we have it organized and we have read it all, and all of it is in there, we respond to any requests that the government has. So if the government if negotiators in Cuba, and this is just an example, if the negotiators in Cuba are talking about political participation, and they want to know what women might think about political participation, and what their organizations might think, or what they're proposing, what they do is that they call on us, and they tell us, we want to know what the women's organizations are thinking about political participation and what they would like to change. And we will go into this database, and we would extract the information, read it, and do a report, different kinds of reports. Usually what we do is that our reports have two types, two sides. We have a qualitative and a quantitative um, sections, you could say. And mostly in the qualitative, what we do is we read and we put in an organized manner everything that we have received in the different events. So, and we go ahead and we give this to the government, and they use it to know actually what Colombians are thinking, what they think it's important, what they're proposing, and it's very important for all of the citizens to feel that they're participating. So hopefully soon there's going to be some events, and we're going to be able to share all this information with so many people, and everybody's going to know that their participation counts. So that's pretty much what I do. That's part of the part of what my job entails. Um, what what I like to tell you right now is about the peace process. If you're not familiar with it, I'm just going to give you a really quick view of what's going on and why there's so many news about it, and pretty much what's going on in Colombia. Just a very quick overview, because it's a conflict that has been going on for more than 50 years. There's many people that would not agree with that, but there's also many sides. So the official recognition is that it's been going on for more than 50 years. This process, this conflict started off a long time ago, and it started off when Latin American countries were going through these changes, this dynamics. It started off as a rural movement. It grew from some dissatisfaction from the rural areas with the central government, as many conflicts around the world have been created, and that's how it started off as. But throughout time, it has transitioned into many things. It has transitioned from being a rural movement that was looking for some equality, some social justice, and some changes in the social structure of the country, and it has transitioned to a movement that is now closely related to laundering money and the drug trafficking, and also abductions, which, if you have read the news lately, is very important right now in the last 28 hours. So it has transformed in different ways. Also, there has been many governments, and there has been many peace processes that have been started by different governments in Colombia. So there has been 3 attempts dated back to 1979, 1981. So it's been a long, arduous process of getting where we are today. Our president, he actually was reelected a little while ago, and he was reelected because Colombians are looking for peace. We all believe that this conflict was over, the country will grow, and it will make much of a difference. So he was reelected. His flag for his reelection was pretty much a peace process. It was started 2 years ago. It started off with an agenda. It was a clear agenda of 6 points. As of right now, they have discuss and come to an agreement of agenda. Um, those points are the agrarian, the policy on rural lands, the political participation of the opposition, and the third point is the drugs and the trafficking. And the fourth point, which they're discussing right now, is the which, because if you think about it, in a 50-year conflict, there's many victims. There is much, you could say there's an estimate that around 6 million people could be considered victims in this conflict. And this actually comes from a law that was passed in Colombia, which is the Victims Law 1448. And who is a victim? And this law dates back to 19. Well, it was passed recently, but it considers people that are victims up to from 1982 to this day. So there's many people. Like I said, 6 million people Colombians. 6 million people could be considered victims. So that's what they're discussing right now. There's still that one, and the last the last two are end of the conflict, which include after they sign the agreement and how you're gonna integrate people into society. You're gonna integrate these combatants into society. And one is how you the last point of the agenda is implementation, which is how are the Colombians going to accept in a way, how they're going to accept the agreement. Meaning, are we going to go vote? Is it going to be per point? Is it going to be because of the agreement? Is there going to be a changes in the, there's many, and so they still have to discuss that. So we have these, like I said, they're discussing victims, and we still have 2 points left to discuss. What I want to bring your attention to right now, I mean, this is a very brief overview of what's going on. There's many sites and there's many shades of information, and there's many points of view and conflicting ideas within Colombia, within the political parties, and it makes it a lot more, it makes it interesting and a lot more difficult to come to that, to the end, per se. But I want to bring your attention to today is the latest developments, which I thought it was interesting for what's going on for this talk that I was going to have with you guys. What happened, this was on, say, Tuesday, this was on Sunday midnight. There was news that came from Havana, and the news were that the FARC, the guerrillas, had captured a colonel, like a high-ranking officer of the military. They have captured him, and they are holding him hostage along with 2 other people. So what the government decided to do was that they decided to stop the negotiations. The negotiations team was supposed to travel today to Havana to continue the talks, but this has not happened because of this latest development, which makes it a lot more interesting, and it also makes it very complex. Because this peace process has been going on between 2 actors that have not come to an agreement of a ceasefire. Both of them would agree on a bilateral ceasefire. Therefore, these agreements and these talks have been going on a active conflict situation, which makes it a lot more difficult, and makes it more difficult for us Colombians to deal with the fact that there's still people being kidnapped, and there's still people being killed, and there's an active war going on in some territory while there's peace talks somewhere else. So it's been interesting, this development. As of right now, I was watching the news. As of right now, there hasn't been, the FARC have admitted that they do have this higher ranking military person, but they have admitted that they do have it, but they don't say when they're gonna release him, which pretty much stalls and the talk. So we're gonna have to see what happens. The peace process has been going on now for, like I said, 2 years. Usually it takes a lot longer, but it's a unique situation because of what I said before, because there's actually not a ceasefire yet from any of the actors involved. So we have to wait and see. We have to wait and see what happens, and see the developments on everything that's going on the political spectrum of Colombia. I think for now, I think that's it. That's what I can tell you. If you had any questions, I'm sure you would you Twitter them to the UCF Relief Fund. But if not, I think that's gonna be it.
Thank you, Angela. It sounds like you and your team at the Foundation work really hard to progress the peace agenda, especially with all of the sudden changes in peace plans that occur at any moment's notice. So I was wondering, what advice would you give someone interested in getting involved with think tank organizations like yours?
Well, one of the things that I do have to say is the experience abroad is the most important if you're thinking of having this as your field of work. So I definitely encourage people to go ahead and look for opportunities abroad. I was very lucky because I'm Colombian, and it turns out that this all played out to my advantage per se, because I was here and I had the ability to be involved. But it's about finding the opportunity, and I would say mostly to find one area of work that you really enjoy, that you find interesting, and try to learn as much as you can and specialize on that, because in this field, it's always, the more you know about one thing, sometimes the better. You might know a lot about many subjects, and you might be interested in, let's say, many regions, but it comes down to the work that you can do and to how close you can get to that community that you want to help. So you probably want to specialize in something. That's something that I think people should think about.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you. And I did get some people asking if they could contact you afterwards at your work emails. So if that's okay with you, we have some people interested in just asking more about how your work is going.
Okay. Yeah, sure. That's fine.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining us. Feel free to take a look at this again on our YouTube channel, and we will be coming up with another webinar series soon. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. Bye.